Oh yeah, we're back.
Calling all my footy fans from all around the globe. Straight out of NYC, this is The Line Breaker.
Yo, what's up, guys? Welcome back to The Line Breaker. I'm Pano. The guy next to me who makes weird noises is, what's your name?
Demetri, aka Juicy.
You can follow him at juicy_footy on Twitter. Correct?
I think that's right.
And you could follow me at Pano_footy on Twitter. Pano, Pano_footy on Twitter, formerly known as X. Please remember to download this episode. Make sure you're following us so that you always get notified when we make videos. And you know what? Subscribe to us on YouTube. I mean, we're going to start using YouTube more making videos, but that's just a little bit tougher. It is easier making podcasts. It is. But we are not talking about making podcasts. What are we talking about today for this mini episode?
We're talking about some questionable managers keeping their jobs and a little what's it called?
A revolution, maybe. A change of how we do things. I would say a managerial revolution, a managerial, some might say, I don't know. Some might not agree with it.
Musical chairs of managers.
The Managerial Merry-Go-Round of the summer has been very interesting, but we're also noticing a new trend. There we go. A new trend in managerial appointments, and we're going to touch upon that today. But Demetri seems super crazed about this one manager reappointment. Maintenance? No, not maintenance. Manager keeping his job? That's Erik ten Hag. Juicy wanted to dedicate a whole episode to it. I don't think he's that worth a whole episode, but let's talk about it. Why are you so passionate about this topic?
I think Ten Hag is Ten Hag's a bum. I think his time at Man U hasn't been great. This season, despite the FA Cup, wasn't great. I mean, the league standing speaks for itself. I think the league is the most accurate representation of how a team did in a year. You know, Champions League or other European competitions or even domestic cups. They're tournaments. If you get the luck of the draw, depending on who you play, if other teams have other priorities, such as maybe resting players for bigger European matches and all that, I feel like you can go deep into tournaments based on a little bit of luck. But the league, everyone has the same schedule. Everyone plays each other twice, home and away. So everyone has an even schedule. And the fact that Man U, the biggest club in England, historically,
and probably the third biggest club in the world,
finished where they finished, which was 8th place. I think their worst in Premier League history is absolutely disgraceful. And then he got thrown a bone with the FA Cup in the final, where
thoroughly undeserved.
Where Man City, kind of disappointed that they didn't do as well in the Champions League or go deep. I had already won the league, so guaranteed Champions League spot, and Man U was literally playing for a European spot in the FA Cup final. If they lose the FA Cup, they're not in Europe, not even in the Conference League. But by winning the FA Cup, they're in Europa League next year, and that's what can drive a team in a cup final, in a domestic cup final. And I guess the Man U players were a little had more to play for and were hungrier. But overall in the league, it was absolutely abysmal. I mean, they were looking pretty comfortable in the top 6, guaranteed a European spot, and then late in the season they were just falling apart, and even bummed Chelsea past them. So that's how you had a bad season. Man U finishing 8th was disgraceful, and I think bringing back Ten Hag is a step backwards and more of the same next season. So I wouldn't be surprised if they struggle again, but hopefully next season they learn their lesson, in my opinion.
Yeah, but you say all that, right? And you say about bum-ass Chelsea, whatever, but don't you remember before we took our hiatus, I was telling you that this Man U team is like ridiculously overperforming their metrics, and like they should be lower, and like they're not a good team. Do you remember me saying that?
I might.
So I definitely did say that, and I said that this Man U team is not as good as the table shows, and they're really lucky to be where they were. And guess what? They're even more lucky than you could even imagine, because they finished 8th, right? Guess what their expected points puts them at?
Let's hear it.
According to understat.com, their expected points puts them not at 8th, but at 14th. I'm sorry, 15th. Yeah, at 15th. 15th place.
Yeah, they were awful. They couldn't score goals. Had a -1 goal difference for a club like Man U, having a -1 goal difference, and then you're bringing back the same manager after like being terrible in the league, and basically all year they were in Europa League, and they did they
No, they were in Champions League.
They were in Champions League, and they who was in their group?
Copenhagen, Galatasaray, and Bayern Munich.
Oh, they bombed out. They didn't even finish in the top 2, right?
I think they finished last.
Yeah, I think they bombed out, which is like terrible. So you don't do well in Europe, and then you finish in 8th place in the league, and then get bailed out by an FA Cup final.
You're lucky to get Europa League. They didn't deserve Europa League.
Yeah, not at all. But the fact that you're going into the game desperate and you need a win to play in Europe gives you that edge over a team that might be tired, disappointed, and just, moving on to next season after just winning the league. A little disappointing in the Champions League run, but they weren't as hungry as Man U was. So
look, obviously they've been linked to a lot of big names: Thomas Tuchel, Mauricio Pochettino, Kieran McKenna, who wound up staying at Ipswich Town, who also used to be an assistant coach at Man U. Who else? I said Pochettino, and Roberto De Zerbi, and they wound up keeping Ten Hag. I saw like a report today saying that like a lot of the candidates were like very underwhelmed by the wages being offered to them for the job by Man U. Like it was very cheap wages, and like it was not something they'd be interested in. How true that is, I don't know. I don't know how Ineos is trying to run their thing. What I will say is that Ineos disrespected the heck out of Ten Hag leading up to the FA Cup final, where basically there was nonstop briefs about he's probably going to lose his job. They're interviewing this manager, that manager. And to go back and like keep him, I mean, if I'm Ten Hag, I probably would have told them to, to go,
That was like a slap in the face. It seemed like his job was already done, and that was like a farewell match.
It was a slap in the face for sure.
And he ends up winning the FA Cup final, and then a week or two later, he gets brought back.
If I'm him, I would have walked.
I feel like they just looked in the market to find a better manager, couldn't find one, and said, you know what, we'll deal with like the evil or the devil that we already know, which is it's not gonna improve the squad or the squad's performance in any way, in my opinion, next season. So I feel like it's just a Band-Aid over a cut that needs stitches, to be honest.
Now here's the question: do you really think it's all on Ten Hag?
I think most of it goes down on Ten Hag. I think the team isn't performing up to par because he's not putting the players in positions where they would exceed. Great managers put players in positions where they can excel. I mean, what was it with Jadon Sancho? He was a bum, written off at Man U, told to leave. He had no spot. Goes to Dortmund, and this guy's balling in the Champions League.
In a final.
In a final.
In a final.
And it's like, it's incredible. Like,
did he play in the final?
He did. He did. And so Ten Hag writes off these players who he doesn't consider to be, he doesn't rate them, and then they go on to different clubs and they're just balling at higher levels. So in this case, I think it comes down to the manager.
Look, I think a huge amount of what's the word? A huge amount of criticism could definitely go on Ten Hag, but I think at the end of the day, like, I also think you could definitely blame some stuff on Man U, just how obviously they haven't been They haven't been up to par. They haven't been a good team for a long time. This Man U team has basically won almost nothing, next to nothing for the last 11 years. They've won some FA Cups. Oh, and a Europa League they won. That's it. That's all they've won. Oh, and a League Cup. They haven't won a Premier League. They haven't won a Champions League. They haven't won any of that. Any big serious trophies in the last 11 years since Sir Alex left. You know, this is supposed to be the biggest club in England. This is the biggest club in England. Commercially speaking, absolutely they are, and they're not really acting like it. Obviously, you know, the Glazers have been, you know, a poison to this club, leeching the club of its resources and, you know, mismanaging it. But Ineos is in now. They, you know, in theory, you would hope that they could do better. Like, you know, they can't do much worse than the Glazers. So they should be here to try to fix things. I know it's going to take time. It's not going to take 1 year or 6 months of ownership. But, you know, for now, Ten Hag seems underwhelming. He could turn things around. He could. They have the whole summer to recruit, obviously, too. But I don't know. I think this looks worse on Man United in a sense that, like, obviously it seems like they didn't have any better options than anything else. Like, I really think Ten Hag doesn't look too bad in this.
I mean, I disagree. I feel, you know, despite, like you said, them not winning much in the last 11 years, I feel like the least you can do is at least be competitive, and finishing in last place in your Champions League group, where you realistically should have, like, gotten out of the group, and then finishing in 8th place in the league it's not competitive. You should at least be competing for a top 4 spot, a Champions League spot, or if not that, at least a European spot, so top 6. But finishing in 8th place, finishing the season the way they did, it was honestly disgraceful that the manager couldn't push them to rack up points at the end of the year. And then again, same example that I said, you know, Jadon Sancho telling him he has no spot in the team, and this guy is playing in a Champions League final the same year. It's absolutely incredible.
It's interesting, especially considering, you know, Man U's bringing good people in.
They also brought in players too. Højlund, Onana. They have brought in players. It's not like they're not, you know.
We were big on Højlund too.
Yeah, so it's not like the club isn't spending some type of money or just playing with what they have. It's, you know, at some point the manager has to put it together and see what works for the players. He had a whole season, and 8th place is what he came up with.
You know, absolutely. Look, it's for a season, it's very disappointing for Manchester United, especially considering they did not deserve that Europa League spot. But, you know, they've put good people in place on upper level management. Their CEO is Omar Barada from Bayrata, I think. He's from Manchester City. Dan Ashworth, the sporting director of Newcastle, is supposed to come in to be the sporting director of Manchester United soon, once he finishes his gardening leave, I think, which is like he has to, like, take some time of not working, or they haven't agreed a fee yet, something of that nature. He's coming in, and he's the former Brighton guy who, like, really made Brighton big. So overall, you know, they're putting good people in place. I think ultimately it's a big sign of faith that they're keeping Ten Hag, and he can't do much worse than last year, right?
I mean, you would hope he couldn't do much worse with the squad he has. But honestly, it wouldn't surprise me if it goes just as bad or worse. I just don't see why bring him back if he didn't really show too many positives at any point throughout the year. Like, outside of the final, I don't think there were really too many positives or positives at all to take out of the season for this club.
So I think ultimately what it comes down to is just the people available, and the people available, I guess, in their range of what they wanted to pay. You know, you heard me say that it seemed like in a report they didn't want to pay much for their manager. So that could rule out a lot of the big dogs like Pochettino, like Tuchel, maybe De Zerbi, who De Zerbi looks pretty much set to be the Marseille coach now, is from what I'm seeing. McKenna wound up staying at Ipswich, was probably a good move on his part. So for me, I think really what it speaks to is the managerial merry-go-round that's happening in world football is like it's been a little weird this summer, and the big names don't don't want to necessarily go to clubs like Manchester United. I mean, look, we had Hansi Flick, the big names. Hansi Flick went to Barcelona, obviously your boys, which is, a big move. Arne Slot, who just won the Eredivisie with Feyenoord, and for all intents and purposes has, kind of become an emerging name. He signed with Liverpool very early. I believe it was before the season started. Like Fabrizio basically said that he was going to be the Liverpool manager. So they got their business done early. Chelsea brought in Enzo Maresca from Leicester City very quickly as well before Manchester United. And again, it seems like Tuchel and Pochettino, they're waiting for something else, or they don't think that the Man U job is right for them. So maybe the options are just not there for United right now, or the options that they want at the price that they want. Overall, though, again, I think that speaks to what's been going on this summer. I mean, I touched on a few of the names already, but there have been some strange moves happening this summer. I guess we could start with the super obvious one that I haven't mentioned yet. It's Vincent Kompany failing way forward, failing to the moon by going from relegated Burnley to Bayern Munich.
Yeah, talk about a failed campaign, finishing 19th, second to last with Burnley. Awful, relegated, and then gets promoted to the biggest club in Germany. Although they finished third, still the biggest club in Germany.
It's not even close.
And that's another head scratcher. Makes no sense.
Mismanagement. That's what it comes down to. But you know what? I definitely didn't have that on my bingo card, but I see a change happening in world football. We have Edin Terzic just walked from Dortmund after leading them to a Champions League final. He walked, and now they've appointed Nuri Sahin, who is their what's it called? He was the academy coach. He was an academy coach. So they promoted Nuri Sahin, again, a young coach. He was playing not too long ago, maybe 4 years ago he was playing. He can't be in his 40s. He has to be in his 30s. Nuri Sahin. We have Vincent Kompany, young manager, going to Bayern Munich, very unproven in terms of, top level. He had a very good Burnley team in the championship, and he had a decent Anderlecht team. But other than that, not much experience. We have Enzo Maresca, won the championship with Leicester City, was Pep's assistant, and got sacked at Parma in Serie B, and he's now the Chelsea coach. So we're seeing this wave of young managers. Same thing with Arne Slot, a guy who, again, a young manager from Feyenoord straight to Liverpool. Liverpool replaced Klopp, who had a huge reputation, won the Bundesliga, took Dortmund to a Champions League final. He had a huge reputation, and he went to Liverpool. Now it seems like the super clubs are opting to hire younger, inexperienced managers, maybe for the project. Maybe they're more collaborative. Maybe they just think that they're more moldable. They want company people, no pun intended there. They want company people, but it seems like clubs want managers who are more collaborative in their model, whether it's at Bayern Munich, whether it's at Liverpool. Liverpool, a big thing that I saw with Slot is that collaboration. He just wants to coach. He doesn't want to have like a say and be like, hey, I want this specific player. He'll have a say and he'll say like, hey, I would like a player to suit my style that has this kind of profile. But he won't have the ultimate say of being like, hey, I want this specific player. The club will go out based on the profile and have a list, and then they'll pick from there. But he doesn't have the ultimate say. Same thing with Enzo Maresca. That was a big thing that people talked about, is that he's willing to just coach and not have an ultimate say. Whereas Pochettino, Pochettino was like, oh, I want this player and this player. He wanted a former Spurs player, apparently, either in January or in the summer, and he wanted more say. And to be honest with you, Pochettino did not deserve to have more say, because Pochettino was a joke and he was terrible for Chelsea. So he didn't deserve to have a say. So that I don't even care about. But like I said with Slot, collaboration. Kompany will probably be the same thing. They want him to work within the model. He'll coach and that's it. So I'm seeing a trend within coaches in world football where I feel like this is happening. Young, everything is trending way, way younger. This new generation now. The super coaches are out of jobs. Tuchel, super coach. Pochettino, out of a job, even though I think he's a bum. Klopp's out of a job. The only people left, Mourinho just signed for Fenerbahce.
Ancelotti and Guardiola still have a job too.
It's just them. It's just them.
Do you think Terzic goes somewhere else this season?
He has to be eyeing something, but who's available?
I mean, he had 2 great seasons. Well, I mean, falling short in the Champions League this year he overachieved. He punched above his weight. Great year. And then last season he literally lost a league title in the last game, which is unfortunate, but still a great year for Dortmund.
I'm trying to think of where he could even go. PSG, if they get rid of Enrique?
He's on his way out too, no?
Maybe that's where he's going. Maybe. I haven't seen anything because this was like a big shock. People were like, whoa, what's going on? And again, they signed Nuri Sahin, a guy from Dortmund, a Dortmund guy. Young coach, inexperienced. So it's pretty wild. I mean, the only move that was kind of like a big name coach was Barcelona going for Flick.
You think Dortmund hired the youth coach because he had trained those players when they were younger? I think that was initially the strategy for Barca when they were considering hiring Rafa Marquez, because he coaches a lot of the younger teams, and they were saying that a lot of those players grew up playing under him, and he would be well respected. He knows the squad, but personally, I think the Hansi Flick decision was the better route rather than hiring an internal Barca guy and keeping it all political. Having an outsider come in and put his system in, I think, was a better decision for Barca.
Well, I got you with the Sahin thing right now. He was only the assistant. Oh, he wasn't with the youth teams. I'm sorry. He was the assistant coach of Edin Terzic. And before that, he was coaching Antalyaspor for a couple of years. He's 35 years old. He retired in 2021. So he wasn't even a youth coach. That was my apologies. I got that wrong. He wasn't actually even a youth coach. He was just the assistant, and they hired him full time. Just strange. I agree. I think Flick is like an interesting.
It's another young coach that we didn't touch on who actually had a very successful year. Xabi Alonso. Yeah.
He did not have a full time. He didn't have a full position before he went to Leverkusen. He was the assistant. No, he was a youth team coach at it was Real Sociedad B. He was coaching at Madrid for a little bit, the youth teams, and then for 3 years, he was the coach of Real Sociedad B before he took the job at Leverkusen. So there's this new generation of these young super coaches coming, and he's another one, collaboration. It's all about collaboration. And, fitting with the model of the team where they have these directors and you kind of have to like work together. So it's, you focus on being the coach and you let the transfer team and the directors, do that. It's not like Sir Alex Ferguson who would want a player and that's it. Or I'm sure Pep Guardiola asks for players. So it's interesting. What do you think? I got to ask you. I know you didn't want to talk about it too much, but like, what do you think of the Flick move, Hansi Flick to Barcelona?
I really like the move. I think his success at Bayern was solid, and hopefully it carries over to Barca. So it's a guy who has experience, proven he can win with a big club, and there's just this like calm demeanor about him where like the players respect him, everyone works hard, and just coming in to this young Barca team, I feel like he'll be able to develop and grow these players as players and physically, which we saw with that Bayern squad where everybody was looking like Mr. Olympians the following season.
Maybe they're just all roided up.
Maybe, but I like his physicality and his system of just working hard, and I feel like the last few years Barca has just been a club with that likes to possess the ball, but there's no real direction when they possess it, whereas Bayern and City have similar ways that they play, but it's like possession with a purpose. And I feel like he can bring that purpose to Barca, where they're possessing the ball and have a purpose and like attacking more direct, going forward. I feel like that's been missing from the Barca team for quite a while.
I mean, I think I told you about this too. Like, I saw a video on YouTube talking, like, analyzing Flick to Barca, and like the video mentions that he's actually more similar to Xavi than he is different. Like, he has very similar principles, but he just has a little bit more emphasis on pressing. You know, like that Klopp style of pressing. You know, the Gegen pressing, the counter press. So he's a little bit more emphasis on that. But like they say, it's not as much of a of what's the word of a change from Xavi than like people think, especially stylistically. It's just like more pressing, but like similar, like I said again, like principles. So I think it'll be interesting.
I thought Xavi was great too. I mean, I wouldn't have minded him like coming back another season. I mean, his first season he wins the league. You know, going back to what we were saying, young coach, you know, different from your big names, won the league, and then this year he didn't have that same luck, but he made a deep run in the Champions League. Deeper, he got out of the group stages, which was a plus.
He made it to the semis.
No, quarterfinals.
Oh, quarterfinals.
Quarterfinals. And they were unlucky to get knocked out in the quarterfinals, but again, he had a club that couldn't really spend money and couldn't bring in players, which was also like hindering his coaching ability. So he had to just deal with what he had and
playing a lot of kids.
Yeah, I think he did a great job. So
that is a shame, and you know, I'm pretty confident that Xavi gets a big job in the future. Who knows? Who knows where Xavi? Maybe Xavi ends up at Man U when they sack Ten Hag.
Maybe that'd
be interesting,
move.
Right?
That would not be a bad move.
The CEO of Manchester United is Spanish. Something to think about. Something to keep in the back of your mind. But yeah, overall, you know, it's honestly, I think actually the managerial merry-go-round is probably not done yet. Who knows? We might see another shock departure. Like we said, what's his face? Enrique is going to be out of a job. So maybe that creates something. I'm trying to think of other clubs who might sack their managers. I mean, Tottenham will probably keep Postecoglou. I'm trying to think of who else. Who else could be? Eddie Howe at Newcastle. I could see Newcastle changing managers. He finished 8th. No, 7th.
Yeah.
He finished 7th. So I could 100% see him being out of a job. There've been rumors that, you know, they're looking at other managers too. So who knows? Who knows? Maybe Newcastle makes a change. So, and obviously City are going to be looking for a new manager soon too. Next year, Pep is out.
Yeah, that's also another interesting aspect.
Here's my question to you. Give me, We've seen the managerial merry-go-round so far this summer. How about you give me like one prediction for managerial sackings or appointments that happen before the start of the upcoming season?
Ooh, before the upcoming season? I think Luis Enrique goes if that's not given. I thought it was already official. I think he goes. He's out of that PSG squad, and I feel like this part is not his fault, losing Mbappe, but I think that only hurts the squad. So, but I think he's lost his job. He's not going to be there next season. But not for this season, but the next season. How you brought up that Man U has a Spanish director?
Yes.
I wouldn't be surprised if Xavi gets a Man City job with all those Barca guys at the top.
That could be interesting. I mean, look, they were saying that Man City was looking at maybe having De Zerbi be a potential replacement for Pep in the future, but Xavi could be very interesting. I just think Xavi needs more experience, you know? Like more, I think he needs another stepping stone before City. Like he needs another big job. Maybe he goes to PSG. Ooh, replace Enrique at PSG.
I don't know. I don't see him going, but that would be a little interesting. That's a good shout. I don't see that happening.
I'm trying to think of where Terzic could go. That's what I'm trying to think of.
He might get the PSG job. I wouldn't be shocked if he got the PSG job.
I mean, I'm trying to see if there's any rumors of where he could go next. I don't see anything. What if Man U signs him after they sack Ten Hag halfway through the year? I could see something like that. This is going to be interesting. This is definitely going to be interesting. I'm curious to see how Enzo Maresca does for Chelsea. You can't have such high hopes considering he was managing in the Championship last year. That's his biggest job. His claim to fame is being Pep's assistant for a little bit. It's not much. So that's a curious one. It's pretty underwhelming, if I'm being honest. But I'm gonna chill, sit back, relax, and watch the show. But yeah, and I'm gonna be watching closely with Flick's Barca. See who they get. Maybe they could get in like a Kimmich or something like that. Some guys who he's familiar with. Some guys who are used to a steroid regime, regimen. So, I think that could be good too. So overall, look, it means it's going to be an exciting season. Big exciting season. I don't know. I mean, overall, like, are you excited to see Flick at Barca?
Yeah, I'm excited to see what he can offer and how different he can have the club perform. But it also matters about who he can bring in too, and I feel like he can have a pull with German players that he did have at the Bayern squad, like Kimmich, which you mentioned.
Here's a question for you. We've mentioned a bunch of managers who've just gotten new jobs or have kept their jobs. So we got Ten Hag, Flick. I'm not going to count Enrique because he might be out of a job. So Ten Hag, Flick, Maresca, Kompany, Slot. I named someone else. Who did I name? Maybe that's it. Yeah, I think that's it. Of those guys who I mentioned, who's going to have the best season? Who's going to have the worst season? So, let's say best of the bunch, worst of the bunch.
What would you consider the best, depending on where they finish in the league or just overall in the season? How deep they go in competition?
League finish, going deep in competitions, trophies.
I think Flick has a good team. I think that Barca's going to be able to spend some money this transfer window, which is going to help. So I think he's going into a young team that has like very little bits of experience here and there, and it's a very, very deep midfield. So I think he'll be set up because the league is usually like a 2 or 3 horse race, so you won't have too much of a problem. So I think Flick will have a good season. I could see Slot not doing too well with Liverpool. I could see Liverpool struggling to finish in the top 4. I mean, this year they finished 3rd, and I don't know. Coaches coming from the Netherlands, struggled recently in the Premier League. Going back to my other bald buddy.
I knew you were gonna bring that up. A lot of bald managers in the Prem.
It's a style. It's in
Maresca,
style. Pep.
Slot, Pep. Ten Hag. Whew. Hey, it's in. It's in. Get yourself a bold manager. So you're going best, Flick, worst, Slot. All right. You're not gonna like this.
Let's hear it.
Best, I'm gonna go with Kompany.
Wow.
So I'm gonna give you my logic for this. I think Xavi Alonso's team is going to do a little bit worse this year. They are probably going to sell a couple players too, even though they are gaining. They are strengthening, but I think they're gonna lose a couple. And I think they'll just drop a little bit. They'll just drop a little bit. I also think that Stuttgart is also losing a lot of their players. They're going to sell their best striker. So, there's that too. So there's that. And then I think Kompany, even though his system was terrible for the Premier League, I think maybe his system, and I guess this is what the Bayern board was thinking, right? Maybe his system at Burnley, when he was the top dog in the championship, and he had, I think, a record points total for Burnley. I think he was like one of the greatest ever seasons with Burnley in the championship. I think maybe they think that playing style could work at at the best team, at the biggest club in the in the league, as opposed to him trying to implement that style with Burnley. Maybe they think he's very unrelenting and he doesn't give up on his style. He's very stubborn. He won't change his ways. And that could work for a team like Bayern, where they have the best players, they have the most money. So, I could see it working. He's going to have an older Jamal Musiala. He's going to have some healthier players coming back. You would think that Bayern are going to strengthen over the summer window, getting some key people in, or just trying to get better players in. Hopefully a midfielder. They're very likely to get Joao Palhinha now from Fulham, who they've been trying to get for a year. So that could solve their defensive midfield struggles. So overall, I think he could do very well. I have faith in Kompany. I thought it was a strange move and I thought it was funny, but I could see it working. So I'm going to go with Kompany doing the best, and I'm going to go with the worst. Hansi Flick.
Wow.
I think it's going to be a disaster. No, I don't think it's going to be a disaster. I just don't think he's going to do that well. One, because he had a really good Bayern team, and that's like his claim to fame, and he didn't do that great with Germany. Like, his Germany team was like super mid. And I don't know. I feel like he's another one. He hasn't really been a manager for that long. Like, it's a very small sample size of like being like a top level manager. And he's on the older side too. He's in his 50s, I think. So I don't know. I'm not sold on Flick. He's a big name because of, him winning the treble with Bayern, but he wasn't much before that. So I don't know if he has what it takes to really lead this Barca team. I think, I'm hesitant. So that's my prediction. Who's the first to get sacked? You think it would be a Slot?
Oh, out of the new managers?
Yeah.
I'm not quite sure. If I had to guess, I wouldn't say Slot. I would say doesn't work, total disaster, Kompany.
Okay. That's fair. I'm going to go Flick also. Laporta seems like he's willing to just chuck people away, so I'm going to go Laporta. I'm going to go Flick.
Whoa.
He should be sacked too. He should be sacked. So yeah, I mean, I would say that just rounds about our thoughts. I mean, do you have any other closing thoughts?
No, I don't have any other closing thoughts. I got my hate out for Ten Hag, and
you hate the bald managers.
No,
Kompany's bald too.
I don't hate the bald manager. I love Pep though.
Yeah, that's true. I guess he's handsome though.
Yo,
Ten Hag's kind of handsome. Did you know that Ten Hag was an assistant of Pep at Bayern?
so is Arteta.
Yeah, I know. So was Maresca.
All these guys are just coming from the Guardiola system.
I don't know if I like that though. I feel like it's bad. I don't know. I'm not crazy about that. I don't know. Anyway, so those were our thoughts on Ten Hag and other managers, the managerial merry-go-round overall. So yeah, we're looking forward to the season. We're going to keep these episodes coming out for you. We're looking forward to the Euros and Copa America starting. We're going to be bringing more of that to you. Oh, and how could we forget about transfer news? We're going to be bringing that to you too. So yeah, stay tuned. Other than that, remember, keep following us on the socials, The Line Breaker, Instagram, Threads, Twitter. Subscribe to us on YouTube, like our videos, even though we're not putting out like actual face videos yet, keyword. And make sure you're downloading all of our episodes on Apple Podcasts. And if it says it's not downloaded anymore, download it again. All right? I'm speaking to the people here, Demetri. All right, other than that, I mean, I'm Pano.
I'm Demetri, a.k.a. Juicy.
And we're out of here.